Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 11, SuKal. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review Star Trek Discovery, so I'll have to start with a spoiler warning for Discovery up to Season 3, Episode 11 if you haven't seen up to this point. You will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. Now, this episode was decent. It was okay, probably maybe not as good as I would have hoped, but it wasn't a terrible episode. It was fine. But you know what? The thing I'm actually going to talk about in this review more than I am the actual episode, that watching this episode, I came to several revelations about Discovery, the entire show as a whole. And the main revelation, or the main sort of decision or realization that I came to after watching this episode is Discovery is not a good show. Now, it's not an absolutely terrible show, but yeah, it's kind of not a good show. Now, you may say, well, that's a bit silly, like, especially the haters would be like, well, I came to this conclusion after the first episode. Well, I didn't, because I think it's a bit too harsh. In fact, I've been saying this whole time that it was too early to judge Discovery. And now, before Season 3 came out, I talked about how this could be a change for the show. This just could be the show becoming a much better show, the way a lot of other Star Trek shows did in Season 3. And Season 3 had a very promising start. The first 4 or 5 episodes were actually really strong, and it promised like a new, better, different direction. But then it started sort of going downhill into mediocrity. And after this episode, I really came to the conclusion that it's not going to get better, that it hasn't gotten better, that it still has the same issues that Season 1 and 2 had, that none of it's changed. That basically, Discovery, Season 3 is just, it's just the same quality of Discovery, but just dressed up in different clothes. Like, oh, we're in this different setting, we're in the far future, but the essence of all the issues that Discovery had, they're all still there. Putting it in a different setting, introducing new characters, didn't change the core issues, the core problem with the show. Now, yeah, so Next Generation Season 3, it was a totally different show. They, in fact, didn't change that much about it. They brought Crusher back. Riker had a beard from the previous season, and so LaForge was also engineer for a previous season, so they didn't actually change much in universe and story, but you just instantly saw there was a better, instantly you could tell the writing was better, the production value was better, that just the whole show had gotten way better. And same with Enterprise. I mean, God, I talked about this in my Enterprise reviews. The drastic change, the uptake in quality from Season 3 to 2 was just really palatable. You can almost touch it and feel it. It's like Season 3 is just so superior to the first 2 seasons in every way. And Deep Space Nine, the change wasn't quite as drastic, but you could also tell that Season 3 was pushing the story forward, and that the show had actually gotten much better from the 2 previous seasons. And I was feeling that a little bit in the first 4 or 5 episodes, but now I sort of made the determination that it's not going to happen. All the issues that Discovery had, namely its over-reliance and sentimentality, is sort of not being able to use serialization and mysteries. It's sort of really up and down, chaotic storytelling that's not really sort of consistent the way particularly serialized shows need to be. And mind you, I'm talking about Enterprise Season 3, that was serialized, and Deep Space Nine, Seasons 6 and 7, were heavily serialized. So it's not like Star Trek has never done serialization correctly before. It has. This Discovery just can't nail it. It's very inconsistent in quality. Like, the thing about seasons 1 and 2, there are parts of both seasons that I love, particularly season 2. There are a few moments and episodes that I think are just amazing. But then they're kind of counterbalanced by a lot of other episodes and moments that are just terrible. And it can't remain consistently good. It can't have a whole of a story that works. So before, whenever anyone would ask me to rank the Star Trek shows, I would always exclude Discovery because I'm like, it's too soon. I can't judge it yet. I need to see more of it. But now that season 3 is almost done, and I pretty much got a handle of where they're going with season 3, I feel confident that I can definitively rank this and definitively rank it as the worst Star Trek show. Not counting the animated series, though, because I don't really include that. That's, very brief, and that's really part of the original series. And not counting Picard or Lower Decks, because it's too early for them, because they only have one season. But out of the other 6, the other 5, and then 6, including Discovery, original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, I would rank Discovery last. Even below Enterprise, because now here's the thing with Enterprise, clearly I stand by, I said before that the first 2 seasons of Discovery are better than the first 2 seasons of Enterprise, and I completely stand by that. I totally stand by that. The first 2 seasons of Enterprise are definitely the worst Star Trek there ever was. They were absolutely abysmal and a tragedy and absolutely horrible, and so I haven't changed my mind about that. But Enterprise had a season 3 and a season 4, both of which were absolutely amazing, particularly season 3. And that level of those 2 seasons are way beyond anything that Discovery has done. So, it's possible Discovery could come out with a season 4 that blows me away, but even then I would have to counterbalance these 3 seasons, and I would still probably put Enterprise ahead of Discovery, because they had not 1 but 2 amazing seasons. But then, of course, Discovery could keep going for like 7 seasons and if it theoretically has like 3 or 4 amazing seasons, and then I might have to change my mind. But I think, honestly, the chances of that happening are extremely low. Not the chances of Discovery getting 7 seasons, but the chances of them making 4 amazing seasons in a row. I'm really getting the impression they're never going to get this formula right. Because I thought maybe they would, because they brought in a new showrunner, they have new writers, but that obviously didn't help. Obviously there's an issue to the core with the writing staff or the production or something behind the scenes that just hasn't been fixed and still isn't working. Now, okay, so you might ask, well, this is ridiculous, Mark. How can you make this conclusion after this one episode? Well, to be fair, it's not. This episode kind of just drove it home to me. And the main thing is, and again, this is not a terrible episode. I don't think this is one of the worst episodes Discovery had. It's just it drove home to me that this show's not going to improve, that season 3 is not going to be better than the previous seasons, that this is the same kind of average, some stuff are great, some stuff are horrible, quality that Discovery has always consistently had. Because, so they revealed what the burn is. And that's why I think I can confidently say that this season's no better than the previous seasons, because, and I briefly touched on this when I was listening to things Discovery mishandled, and that's their mysteries. Now, I had said that the reveal of the burn has to be spectacular. It has to be something really good, and it's not. It's not terrible. Sorry, the reveal of what the burn or what caused the burn is not terrible. It's not the worst thing ever. But here's the thing: they were hanging so much of the season was dependent. Like that was the driving mystery, which the last 2 episodes kind of just ignored and pushed to the side. But whatever. But it's been the driving mystery that's was really driving this whole season. So I thought, well, they're hanging so much of the season on the burn that the reveal of what caused the burn has to be absolutely blow your socks off amazing. Otherwise the season doesn't work. And guess what? It's not. So the season doesn't work. And that's because they hung too much of the season on that one plot point. They didn't do enough to diversify, to make, and this is something that I think Discovery has constantly did. Like the Red Angel, that reveal was not enough to hang the whole season 2 on. The whole Mirror Universe Lorca thing, that was a stupid reveal. So that didn't work for the season 1. So yeah, Discovery just kind of hangs too much on this one mystery that actually doesn't actually maintain the season enough. It isn't that fascinating or interesting, and they've really mishandled doing serialization, which is why I hear a lot of people saying that Star Trek shouldn't do serialization, should go back to episodic. That's something I firmly disagree with, particularly after watching Enterprise Season 3 and Deep Space Nine Season 6 and 7, and also Voyager, because that should have been serialized. A lot of the issues with Voyager is because they made it way too episodic. So I'm against that in general. However, I can understand why people feel that way, because Discovery is so mishandling serialization. It probably gives people the impression that Star Trek can't be serialized, which again, not true. Enterprise Season 3, go watch that. Go watch the Deep Space Nine later seasons. Serialization totally can be absolutely amazing and work in Star Trek. It's just they're not doing a good job with Discovery. Now, Picard's a whole other issue, and again, the jury's still not out on Picard because it only had 1 season, but it also had a sort of up and down. Some things are great, some things are not so good. Actually, probably to an even bigger extent than Discovery. But again, I'll wait Picard out for later seasons. But anyway, yeah. So the reveal of the burn is that it was caused by an angry Kelpian boy. I mean, there's more to it than that. He was stranded alone. Like his ship was stranded. All of his parents died, but he somehow survived. He was immune to the radiation, but he had his whole DNA tied into the radiation. This planet filled with dilithium, and that sort of caused him to, be different. And so when apparently he got angry or scared of like a smoke monster, that he would freak out, and that caused the burn. Again, it's not stupid, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not that interesting. It's not enough to hang the whole season on. It's like, okay, that's it? A Kelpian boy? That's what we've been waiting all season to find out? Alright, I can't say it's particularly satisfying. I really can't. Now, this episode itself, as I said, it was decent. It definitely held my attention. It was definitely really suspenseful, particularly them trying to get into Nebula and Booker having to use his ship, and then when they beamed down to the ship or whatever and had this holo program, like, first of all, I gotta give credit where credit is due. This set design and like the whole way this was filmed, the editing involved in this whole sequence was absolutely amazing. Like the cinematography, everything looks absolutely beautiful. Like the like maze-like structure in the background, you have this like black sky with these like things floating around. It's amazing. This is top quality production as far as like set design and cinematography goes. It's just a shame when you see such great production value wasted on the story that's just kind of average. I mean, it's not terrible, but I mean, like the whole thing with them, the whole storyline of the SuKals and looking for him and him freaking out and being. I mean, I get that he's not socially adjusted because he was raised. Is he 120 years old? That's the impression I got. But anyway, I didn't know Kelpians lived that long. But maybe they'll explain that. So whatever. That I don't mind that. But the fact that he was raised alone, he lived his entire life just with holo programs. I mean, yeah, it makes sense that he's a bit weird, a bit not very well adjusted, and a bit socially awkward. Like that makes sense. But I don't know. I just wasn't all that interested in them, the story of them trying to get him. I was just thinking, just grab him and beam back to the ship. But no, they have to drag this out because apparently it's tied into what happened to the burn. And they have to make a bigger ordeal out of it, and they have the radiation's coming, so they're on a timetable. And when they're on the timetable, I'm thinking, like, why don't they just like phaser him and grab him? But whatever. Oh, they didn't have their phasers, but whatever. I don't know. So, I mean, that's fine. That was all well and good. And then when they had Osira, or whatever her name is, show up, like, that was pretty intense. And especially ending. Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. It's kind of veered off for me a bit. Because first of all, Osira is like a very mustache twirly villain. It's like, hey, I'm gonna take your ship. Hey. Now, granted, she is a bit menacing. I do think they do a good job with that. Particularly the design of her ship is designed very well to come off as very menacing. And the way they portray this character, she sounds like someone who is confident and has a lot of power and can back that power up, who are the most kind of menacing type of villains. But when I think about, again, comparing it to Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, when I think about the Xindi, how dynamic of villains that they were, that there was like 5 different kinds, and even like the spear builders who ended up being the true villains of season 3, even they weren't too mustache twirly. They had a motivation. Now, the reptilians could come off as a bit mustache twirly, sure, but you still got this sort of, there was a part of their culture to be very sort of aggro, and that they were doing what they thought were right. And also, especially if you can compare it to the Deep Space Nine villains, the Dominion, you had like the Changelings, which were, and Wayun, who's amazingly portrayed. Like the Changelings were like genocidal, like maniacs who would just kill people willy nilly. But again, they were well established and they were so like you. 3-dimensional, and you really bought them. And same with Wayum and Gul Dukat. Even though some people put down Gul Dukat, his turn of being evil at the end, I actually don't think it was that bad. I actually would prefer Gul Dukat Paul Wraith storyline to Osira, but that's just me. But especially if you compare it to other villains like the Xindi or the Dominion, like they're just this Osira person just comes off as a more like Nero to me, quite frankly, with a very sort of 2-dimensional, I'm gonna beat you. Yeah, and by the way, that mind control helmet that they put on Stamets was very cartoonish. Like, that was like reminding me straight out of the cartoon. That was ridiculous too. But here's the thing. And now I'm going to stop tiptoeing around my main issue with this episode. And that's Ensign Tilly. Now, I talked about in previous episode reviews when they promoted her to first officer just how ridiculous I thought that was, and I couldn't buy it. And I've heard a lot of people are actually willing to go with this. They're like, oh, and they come up with these, what I'm sorry, in my opinion, are lame excuses to try to excuse why Ensign Tilly got promoted to temporary first officer. And all those excuses, I believe, are total bullshit, by the way. I think this is inexcusable. And I already ranted about this, but here's the thing. Seeing this in action, seeing her in command of Discovery, I'm sorry, this is not something I'm just going to let go. I'm just going to accept and move on. I just cannot. I am not wired to do that. I just cannot take this seriously. So for me, watching this scene with Tilly in command of Discovery is kind of like watching a movie about a 12-year-old boy who becomes president of the United States, or a dog that becomes like a police detective, or police, not like a dog police officer, but like an actual police detective, and it's like promoted to police chief or something. This is the level of suspension of disbelief I believe is required to buy Tilly as captain, and is far too much. For me, it comes off as far cartoonish, way too silly for Star Trek. Now, you might be like, well, Mark, this Star Trek has always been silly. You always had a level of suspension of disbelief because they have all this techno-babble that's practically magic, and, a lot of other stuff just magically happens, and you had the whole, pod race and Ducat thing or whatever. None of that holds the candle to, like, all the other, like, techno-babble, magical transport, any of that shit. It's crazy, it's fantastical, but I can go with it. I can buy it. I can't buy a fucking 12-year-old as the president of the United States. I can't buy a fucking dog as the police chief. And I fucking cannot buy Ensign Tilly as being in command of a starship, like, especially a Federation, the Discovery, when there's tons of fucking other officers around her who outrank her, and she's so naive and silly. Like, her interactions between her and Osira the whole time, I'm like, oh my god, this is so dumb! It is cartoonish. I cannot buy it. I cannot buy it. I absolutely cannot. I would rather have a president, a 12-year-old boy being the president. This is ridiculous. It's worse. It's fucking worse. I compared this to, like, the 2009 movie where Kirk gets promoted to captain after being cadet. This is worse. This is actually worse. This is terrible. This is unbelievable. This, to me, instantly sinks the episode. And probably, like, basically the whole show, that they would lead up to this total horseshit nonsense that is cartoonish to an unbelievable level that I just cannot stomach. I can't stomach it. And Ensign Kim, after 7 years, Harry Kim was still a fucking ensign. He didn't even get promoted to a lieutenant junior grade. But after 2 years and a half, this fucking ensign, who's way more incompetent than Harry Kim, becomes the fucking first officer, and then the acting fucking captain. Fuck this show. No, fuck it. This is just no. I can't do it. Discovery has now officially, in my eyes, become the worst Star Trek show. Not to say that it's terrible. There's still things I like about it. I'm still gonna watch it, but I've kind of lost hope that it's gonna get better. That it's gonna stop flip-flopping from being awesome and then sucking, being awesome and then sucking. I think it's gonna be stuck in that loop endlessly until the end of the show. That's at least the indication that I get. And to be frank, the moments of it being awesome are fading. They're being outweighed by the moments of it sucking. Or just being okay. To be honest, to be fair, the majority of this show, particularly season 3, is it just being decent. Sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's awesome, but most of the time it's decent. And it's just not good enough for me. Like this episode, for example, it was decent, while the Tilly stuff sucked beyond belief. I just can't take the show seriously with that. And especially like the Osira, but she's just a decent, like, she's ominous, but she's two-dimensional and flat, and the storyline with the the Kelpians, that was interesting to have a a Kelpian boy be a bit crazy and have being raised by himself, and so we're trying to connect him, interesting, but that being the cause of the year-long mystery, not interesting, disappointment. So it's just like it levels out at being okay, and that's just not okay with me. Anyway, my rating for SuKals out of 10, I'm going to give this a 7, very good, which is, you might see as a high rating, considering how much I complained about Discovery and concluded is not a good show from watching this episode. But as I said, the episode itself was decent. I mean, it was passable. I might have given this an 8 if it wasn't for that Tilly shit. That's it for my review of SuKals. Sure, a lot of people are going to be unhappy. Bring it on with my review, but whatever. I shall be here. Shall continue to review episodes of Discovery, so be sure to check out my channel for that. Also, check out my channel as I cover many other shows like The Expanse, Breaking Bad, all sorts of Star Trek, The Outer Limits, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.